Alrighty, let's get this going.
Well, let's see. We've introduced everybody already, I think. Well, let's see. Cecilia and Amara are already here. Mike Christensen, we've introduced earlier today. And so, Breck and Lee, would you introduce yourself? Waiting for them, we can introduce Tim Gould very quickly. He was here a second ago.
Sorry, we're introducing ourselves.
Yeah, go ahead, Gleb.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Gleb. I'm a medical student at the Pacific Northwest University of Health Sciences in Yakima, Washington. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gleb.
All right, let's do, since Gleb, you're there, why don't we start with you? Because what we're going to do is introduce what the project that he's working on for us. So, Gleb, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. In collaboration with Gary Wart and Charlie Hamilton from All Aboard Washington, as well as Dr. Breck Lebeg from Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility, and Dr. Anthony Steffes at my home institution, we've been working on a survey study for referring medical professionals on the impact of restoring passenger rail service, such as the North Coast Hiawatha in Central Washington, along the I-90, I-82 corridor between Seattle and Tri-Cities, and specifically the impact on patient accessibility to non-urgent medical appointments in larger cities like Seattle. So for instance, if a patient needs a routine procedure that is not offered in Yakima, and the closest city that does is Seattle, we're asking referring providers how their patients get there, what barriers they face to get there, and among other questions, what level of passenger rail service would be necessary to facilitate transportation in these cases. Our current goal is to achieve a response rate between 5 to 10% of the approximately 600 to 700 providers in Yakima and Kittitas counties, and we're currently around 2%. We've distributed the survey already through the Washington State Medical Association and are currently working it through smaller healthcare organizations in Yakima and Kittitas counties, such as Yakima Farm Workers Clinics and Kittitas Valley Healthcare. While we're still in our main data collection phase, I was primarily invited here just to talk about several of the responses that we've already received, some stories from respondents, specifically about the barriers that their patients face when getting to bigger cities like Seattle. Should I just go for it? Take that as a yes, but one of the first stories we heard was from a physician in Yakima. There are limited specialties in Yakima, especially gastroenterology, rheumatology, dermatology, that the practices in town either do not offer or have very limited capacity for. Many of my patients are uninsured or agricultural workers who do not have their own transportation. I often have to make do with a virtual consultation or very long wait times for a local place. It's not just cost for patients, but also time off work, childcare, or pain associated with long car rides. From a nurse practitioner in Grandview, the largest problem for access from my area specifically is pediatrics. I work in rural community health. Our patients do not have the means to purchase gas or sometimes even have a car to make it to their appointments in Seattle for their children. From a physician assistant in Yakima, in the winter months, patients are often not able to get across Snoqualmie Pass to Seattle for specialist appointments and surgery. I've also had 4 to 5 patients in the past year who were not able to secure transportation to appointments in Seattle due to personal finances or having no available car or driver. From another physician in Yakima, probably 20 patients of mine within the past year have missed or rescheduled appointments across the pass, resulting in delay of care, including referrals for potential cancer and for high-risk prenatal care. Sometimes they don't miss an appointment, but have huge stress getting there, especially if in bad weather. Sorry, my document's glitching here. But from another physician assistant in Yakima, multiple people who are in need of skilled spinal surgery, especially to avoid potential permanent disability, are unable to afford transportation to Seattle and later end up in the emergency department and are airlifted to emergency surgery. This drives healthcare costs, provides worse healthcare outcomes, and higher morbidity for patients. And this has happened to about 10 of my patients in the last year. And lastly, from a physician in Wenatchee, they said I would refer more patients for electroconvulsive therapy or ketamine. But driving over the mountains during the winter is a significant barrier. Not all my patients have reliable transportation or someone to drive them. So there's too many stories like these coming from providers in my region. And based on these responses, we're already seeing recurring themes associated with difficulty traversing the pass, poor weather conditions, the stress and physical time and monetary cost barriers associated with driving, and just poor accessibility to a car or someone to drive them in the first place. So to kind of wrap things up, I hope these stories can really help emphasize how imperative quality access to public transportation options like rail is not only for convenience, efficiency, our economy, our environment, but also for our health, especially the health of our rural communities, patients with disabilities, and others who do not drive. We're really excited about the results we have been seeing and look forward to hopefully getting them out to the FRA and our state legislators in January. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? I think that was a nice footnote to the conversations that we were just having with Cecilia and Amara, because it's really all about the importance of transportation for lots of reasons, but medical care is certainly one of them.
Yes, we got a comment from the audience that this is something we heard a lot from LeGrand. Yeah, something definitely I see people riding with Sound Transit, especially the Tacoma Link extension, which hits two hospitals in Tacoma.
Yeah, this is a kind of a dispersion factor problem. The military faces it all the time, but they can throw money at it with helicopter transportation. It also speaks to just a general lack of enough specialty trained physicians, which is reflected in the way our insurance policies and the way we treat medicine in this country. Because if it doesn't make a profit for the president of the insurance company, it obviously is bad care. And you can tell I'm a retired physician. And I wouldn't have been out there either because I was a subspecialty orthopedic surgeon. I don't think I could make a living out where you're working right now, Glenn. So
yeah, we've lost a hospital in the past couple of years in Yakima. We recently lost an OBGYN clinic down in Toppenish, and it's primarily just because it's not profitable. And most often they just need to get to Seattle or Tri-Cities for that care. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I don't have a good answer. Even doubling our current pauperized transportation not be enough to meet the needs. I don't really have a good than getting people to be aware of the fact that large numbers of our fellow citizens are scattered, living in rural communities, and they simply don't have access to decent medical care.
There's another hand up there, Patrick.
It looks like you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Patrick. It's Kim Whittemore. I just wanted to mention, many of you know this, but someone like Dave and others may not, that in Montana, Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority, and I thought this was very positive. We got a $25,000 grant from the Montana Healthcare Foundation, Dave, and we used that money to conduct a series of meetings throughout the state, focusing on tribal and rural communities, with even greater emphasis on social determinants of health. And we generated ultimately a 95-page report. Maybe that's too long, but it speaks are trying to accomplish. So I'm just hoping, I'll put the link to it in the chat for anyone that wants to see it. But I think these are the kinds of things that Dan Bilka, Charlie, and others are talking about, as how can we collaborate so as not to have our advocacy efforts so focused on our own geography that we miss the bigger point of what we're trying to do with public transportation. That's it.
Yes, regarding access to healthcare from I guess more rural areas. Washington State has like a very unique, terrain situation with like how hilly it is. So I think, again, going back to fixed route service, I think it's important to keep in mind, how somebody might access healthcare, if they have even like a temporary injury, or if they're recovering from surgery. I know I was recovering from shoulder surgery, and one of the bus routes that was more accessible to me, that's like a slight incline versus like a steep hill. The slight incline bus stop closed down. So then to access, the bus that would take you to like the Federal Way Physical Therapy Center, was covered in like loose rocks and was in disrepair. So, I actually fell when going to the bus stop. And then I was kind of just thinking, there wasn't another option before, but now that that option is gone, people have to find alternate routes. So even, locally, I think it's important to always think about, healthcare as like a very primary service, in all aspects of urban design.
Well, I think
Alrighty,
it's
thank you very much.
I think it's something
Since
that the country has
we're
to look
running
at.
short on time,
Okay,
what I'd like to do is to introduce Tim Gould next. Tim Gould represents the Sierra Club of Washington and also the Rail Can't Wait group. So Tim.
All right. Thanks. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak here. Again, my name is Tim Gould. I chair the Sierra Club Washington Chapter Transportation and Land Use Committee. And in that capacity, I'm working on trying to get the Washington chapter of Sierra Club to endorse the Rail Can't Wait campaign and its legislative priorities for 2024. I'll go over some of that in a little more detail along with Mary and Arvia from the Rail Can't Wait campaign after I'm done speaking on behalf of Sierra Club. Also, Sierra Club signed on, both the Washington and Oregon chapters signed on to the Greater Northwest Passenger Rail Policy Statement that was developed back in April. And so we're on board with that, and I'm hoping that I can convince the Washington chapter leadership to also sign on with the Rail Can't Wait campaign matter. There are obviously a lot of important climate and environmental considerations that really fit the Sierra Club goals and objectives. And so we're trying to be allies in that respect. So I guess if we could move along, I'll talk about the specifics along with Mary and Arvia on the Rail Can't Wait campaign presentation.
Oh, sure. Yeah. This one here, I'm sorry. Just realizing that that's kind of.
I'm
it's
sure
still
you'll miss
up
it. All right, so I'll give it a try. Mary Patterson with the Rail Can't Wait campaign, which you can see from this slide is actually not, you won't find it on the web. It's not an organization. It's a campaign that's formed by these different organizations: Climate Rail Alliance, Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility, Solutionary Rail, and an arts organization called Earthlings. And we welcome any other endorsements for our 2024 legislative agenda, which we're circulating with some excitement right now and with a real sense of urgency. So that's one thing I want to say about the campaign, is that we're all about how we can shift to mode, what projects can be done by 2030 to 2035. Not interested in waiting till 2045, 2050 and after. We really, because of the climate crisis, because of public health needs, because of mobility needs that we've heard a lot about today, we are interested in urgently shifting to mode for both passengers and freight. And so our legislative agenda has 6 items on it. We're just going to talk about one of them today, but it includes rail yard electrification, includes east-west service via Stampede Pass, includes finding funding through Climate Commitment Act funds in Washington State, includes Southeast Washington near the Lower Snake River and how short line rail can be used there quickly, like in the next year to 2. So some of the items have a fairly big price tag. One of the items does, the one we'll talk about. The others have pretty low, small price tags because there are studies that will get us to this implementation urgently. And this is just the other thing I want to talk about before handing it back over to Tim, who will talk about that one project. This is about an agreement that only recently expired. We talked a lot today about private-public partnerships or collaboration between government and the Class 1s, privately owned rail. Well, this is an example of something that Washington State had for 20 years, from 2003 to 2023. It only expired in June. And it was to implement all sorts of projects on the Amtrak Cascades route, which many of us traveled on today, whether from Portland or from Seattle or elsewhere. Projects on that route, including 110 miles per hour on some sections. There was an agreement between WashDOT and BNSF to actually do that. So we think it's very much within our grasp to renew or renegotiate an agreement like that again soon. So with that, I'll hand it over to Tim, and I have copies of our agenda if anybody would like them. Thanks.
So what we're really calling for here are to do some upgrades to the Amtrak Cascade service. It's really important that some near-term investments get made. This particular image shows those the new Arrow train sets that will be coming hopefully in 2026. And there's some other key factors going on here, like the World Cup in 2026 that will involve both Seattle and Vancouver, BC, and there'll be visitors traveling back and forth. We need more trains. 2 round trips just isn't going to cut it between Seattle and Vancouver, BC. But we have some documents, plans in place, the long range plan, the state rail plan. All of these things can be used to go after federal grants as soon as possible. And what we like to call, the point that we really like to make here is we want service where the speed will meet the need, and that means increasing the speed on the Amtrak Cascades with additional sections of high-speed track that would allow for 110-mile-per-hour operation. It's in state statute that, for example, Seattle, Portland, the trip time be reduced to 2.5 hours, 2 3/4 hours for Seattle, Vancouver, BC. These are the kinds of improvements that we need to be focusing on in a near-term and medium-term timeframe in advance. And among the key projects that we've identified to begin would be this Point Defiance bypass track at the southern end of that to have an alternate realignment with higher speed track that would accommodate a lot faster trains than 30 miles per hour, whereas they're limited now. It's important too to make sure that what's done with this project is coordinated with the I-5 bridge replacement, that WSDOT not move forward in a way that would preclude making the rail upgrades. This is really important because we'll be able to shorten the travel time and improve the reliability. Along with that, Point Defiance bypass curve revision would also be additional track in the right of way that would allow for, again, that 110-mile-per-hour operation. What we're looking for here is incremental benefits as additional projects get implemented. We want to shorten the travel time. We want to increase reliability. And another piece that what Arvia will speak to concerns some educational programs.
Hi, my name's Arvia Morris. I'm from Climate Rail Alliance, one of the organizations that's part of Rail Can't Wait. And so one area that we feel is really important is to have much more rail-specific education in Washington State. None of our university systems have rail-specific education. They do have engineering programs, but rail is a unique field, and having more depth in our workforce, and also just having more workforce with all of these exciting projects that are going on in the region. So currently we're working with a legislator and other people we've been referred to write a budget proviso to fund a study to look at feasibility for this workforce development. And this is also, these are green jobs. So all the money and emphasis that we're trying to generate to have a green transition, this really fits in with the workforce development. And that's.
Thank you. Okay, so Spring, is your group from Eastern Oregon on the line?
Are you just introducing, is it my turn?
Yes, it's your turn.
Okay. Thanks for this opportunity. And well, I'm not going to give the history of our group other than to say we started working in 2019. So about 4 years we've been doing this work, but we recently got a Baker group started, and there was a meeting, the third meeting that they had out there in Baker City on Tuesday, and there were 40 to 45 people that came, which was very exciting. And so goodness.
Survey.
Okay, so
Businesses.
so I think one focus is going to be to survey the businesses in Baker City about the economic benefits of having the Pioneer reinstated and stopping in Baker City like it used to. There were just a lot of wonderful comments from those folks at that meeting, and we're encouraging them to post those comments onto the FRA website for this long distance study, and to legislators also, to Gorsuch and anybody else who's on that caucus. So then also, I just wanted to also say that we really feel a lot like Utah, what Mike Christensen was sharing, in that there's not great support from our legislators in Eastern Oregon, that Bence is not on board with rail. He's quite against it. And so we just feel like a push to let him know that that his voters, his constituents are on board, and maybe an effort to work more closely with Idaho and Senator Crapo, because he is for the passenger rail, would be helpful. Also, I just wanted to say there's 14 counties in Eastern Oregon that are part of this Eastern Oregon Counties Association, and they've already submitted a statement in support of passenger rail via the, I think, on comments to SB 14, I believe. So let's see. Another point I wanted to make was that I do believe in the importance of stories, and that was part of our effort when we got started with a petition that we did, and then we got our city of Halfway to pass a resolution and in support of passenger rail, and then we sent the packet to our electeds, and we included our personal testimonies, and I just want to say that anybody we ever talk to about passenger rail, they're all want it, and they've all got a story they want to tell. And so, and I would like to introduce Matt Krabacher. He's a young person in Baker that we connected with this last meeting. He and his friend Inger they were very enthusiastic, and Matt is actually on Zoom here. And so I'd like to give him an opportunity to say, add anything he'd like. So take it away, Matt, if you want.
Sure. Thanks for that, Spring, and thanks for all of your work out here in Eastern Oregon. My name is Matt. Like Spring said, I'm relatively new to the kind of movement or effort in this area to bring passenger rail here, although I've long been a passenger rail advocate and appreciator. And I moved to Eastern Oregon recently and was dismayed to hear that I live like 3 blocks from the train station, or that would be train station in Baker City that used to be part of the old Pioneer route. And I would absolutely love it if that rail line could be reinstated. I think, especially in rural areas where there is no other real option of transit in and out of these areas, it forces a car-dependent culture that I find problematic, and also it provides all these blockers or barriers for access for people who otherwise can't drive out here or when the weather is terrible. So yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there and say I'm excited to kind of be part of this project and want to kind of see it move forward. So thank you everybody for your work so far.
This is Wix Covey. I'm with Spring over here, and I want to tag along with what the gentleman from, let's see, what was his name? Gleb site. We've been, as far as his medical issues and things, we all are facing that same thing in Eastern Oregon. Our St. Alphonsus has just canceled their birth center, and that has created a hell of a stir. Our mayor has made, Mayor in Halfway has made a huge statement on that and has pushed that out. But I would like to get his survey, because I think it'd be exactly what we're facing here in Eastern Oregon. Same comments, same things, same lack of specialties, or everybody I know that has to go for serious things goes to Boise. And that's a 3-hour trip from us. And that means unless you know somebody there, you're staying overnight or you're coming back in the dark. And so thank you so much for having him there. And also Meredith from Virginia was extremely influential in a direction we might be taking. And I thank you for having her connect with us. And I'll leave it at that.
Right. Thanks.
We have about 20 minutes before our friends need to go south to Oregon. So what I thought we could do as the ending point of today's discussion is have a brainstorming session about how, as individuals, what can we do to make our dreams of better transportation turn into realities? What is it that we as individuals can do? We've gotten a lot of good comments today about some ideas for that, but I thought we would throw it open and see if we could get some feedback from folks as to where we can go from here. So let's, again, if you're on Zoom, jump in. If you're in the room, we'll run around with the microphone.
Here, we've got one of our audience members here.
Yeah, I want to step over to the other side of the room. I want to say a little bit about what Aorta has been doing. We've partly with Marion's help. Marion, where's Marion?
Right there a minute ago.
Yeah, we've started to try to do a station greeter program like Portland Union Station. One of the things we need to do is contact with the people who are riding the system. There are a lot of people that ride the Cascades that don't even know we exist. And one of the ways we get them to know that we exist is by being at the train station and interacting with them. And one of the things we've been doing in Portland is use a therapy dog. Most people know that in transportation, therapy dogs are becoming much more commonplace. And as far as I know, Portland Union Station is the only place in the United States that has a therapy dog. So we need to be interacting with those people who are using the system. Thank you.
Brian Yanity, I think you're next.
Hello, great meeting everyone today. I loved everyone's presentations and questions and so forth. But on what we can do, we got to push our legislators to strengthen rail within our DOTs. A year ago at the meeting in Centralia, I was there in person. And I think one of the things I said, one of the lessons from California is there's too much there's a such thing as too much local control. Between 20 and 10 years ago, a lot of the power of our state supported railroads, like the Surfliner and the Capitol Corridor and whatnot, was devolved from the state to county level agencies, or particularly county transportation agencies acting in joint powers agencies. And long story short, it has not worked. We're advocating for the state to take a more active role again. Just the county level agencies get too parochial and get cave to wealthy NIMBYs who live next to tracks who don't want anything built. And unfortunately, Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transportation was eliminated this summer without an action of the legislature. So we're some legislators with us are pushing to restore the division of rail as it was in the 90s. But really, you got to push for a large staff of people on staff in the state government who have rail expertise, including people who used to work for Class 1 railroads who know everything about rail. You got to have them on staff. Don't rely on consultants and don't rely on county governments. That's my advice.
Nathan, you're next.
I used to live in Reading.
Wait for the train to go by.
Yeah.
Nathan, you're next.
Hey there,
Okay,
Nathan. We see. Oh, there you go.
thank you. I'm Nathan. I'm working on a project called Snow King Rail. The object of it is to reach out to local businesses that surround rail infrastructure, kind of like um, any one of the organizations that caters to businesses to support those businesses in the local communities. So by doing so, you're creating advocacy for rail, but also creating advocacy for the businesses that are surrounding the rail corridors. The focus is on future, present, and past. So that means rail that is planned out, rail that is currently in place, and rail trail infrastructure in the greater Pacific Northwest. And you can reach me at snowkingrail@gmail.com. I also have another side project, but it's not ready for prime time yet.
Thank you. We've also
Thank you, Nate.
talked to several people already today. So if they want to jump in again, Mara, Cecilia, Mike from Utah. What else do you have to add to what we've been talking about?
I guess I'll just add, in thinking about more complete transit, to think locally too, like right now, Seattle's working on their levy next year, which that is a third of their transportation budget, and that's where all multimodal projects come from, are funded through the levy. And Seattle, like lots of cities, are also working on a comprehensive plan, which has, you know, huge implications on land use, and our transportation systems. And so, you know, in addition to the legislature, you know, right now in Seattle, and I think in other cities and counties, working on, you know, big 9-year, 10-year, 20-year plans for land use and transportation funding that is really important, that we, you know, change the priorities and the proportion of funding that goes to, you know, car infrastructure instead of multimodal transportation.
Election in 2024. And this is the time that we should all be talking to anybody who's thinking about running for anything and making sure that what we want is in their portfolio of things that they're supporting. A lot of candidates don't have any idea about transportation in general and rail in specific. So this is the time that we need to be in their kitchen cabinets, so that when they, assuming they get elected, then we will be the people that they talk to about what transportation should look like. And so if you're volunteering or thinking about volunteering, November 2024 feels like a long way away, but it's not. So this is the time to be talking to your potential elected officials, locally, state, and national.
Well, one thing I learned today was about having a dedicated funding source. And that's what I thought I heard from Virginia, was that they figured out some kind of a stable funding that was strictly for rail. And that ties in with Brian's point about strengthening rail in our departments of transportation. So there's barriers to that. And I think understanding what the barriers are and then figuring out what the answers are.
Mike Christensen, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Charlie. I just wanted to reiterate that getting passenger rail plans to move forward is not like the same planning process that we use with highways. It needs to be grassroots, bottom up efforts. So yes, I'm hoping there'll be more opportunities for that in the future. And it looks like Nathan also has his hand up.
Yeah, I want to irradiate that I was on the East Side Rail project. In fact, I was the conductor for East Side Freight Railroad. And in the combination of looking at that project, we had support. We had people that were talking about putting in rail and commuter rail in that area. But really what seemed to be the blockade in that situation is the community support. We didn't have overall larger community support for a project that included rail. Part of my ideas of putting together Snow King Rail is that you're connecting community to rail infrastructure. And as long as we have this disconnect of, well, transit is something separate from the way that we do business, we don't have that community support so that we can tell our legislatures, look, you have your community support to build this thing. And that's part of what I seek out to develop with my projects.
Bob Krebs, I see you're.
Hi, I'm Bob Krebs with Aorta, and I also retired almost 20 years ago as ODOT's rail passenger coordinator. But one of the things that's lacking, that's been brought up by many of you, is that we need a dedicated funding source. Now, as you saw from our Washington, they had this high-speed rail agreement between BNSF and WashDOT. In Oregon, there are multitude of rail plans on the shelf that were there for over 2 decades that have never been implemented. And so we need a funding source like the highway fund, not taking from the highways. And that will make things happen. Now, there's also some benefits that have not been mentioned today. One is tourism. And if you look at communities like Yakima, Baker City, who are on our program today, they have a multitude of tourism activities, and every tourism dollar that comes into that community turns over 7 times in the economy. So that's an economic benefit. Now, there's another benefit that I own 1 automobile. Most of you own 2 automobiles. Now, they say that the cost of maintaining an automobile is somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000 a year. Now, if you use public transit, it's a fraction of that cost. And so by putting out a usable system, you reduce family expenses, leaving more dollars to spend on businesses in the community. So there's a number of benefits that come from having a good comprehensive system. And I served on the Senators Crapo and Wyden's Pioneer Committee over almost a quarter century ago, and nothing became of that. But ODOT offered to put premium bus service on that corridor between Portland and Boise. And we were turned down by almost every chamber of commerce along the route that supported the train service. So there is also a psychological interest in riding trains. And I also hope that we have better information out there so people can use the system. I find now it's difficult to get information about everything. I don't know if you find that's a problem. But we don't have timetables that are online. Now I can understand not printing because that's expensive. But if you put them online, then we can print our own. And it only costs a few dollars to have somebody set them up. And I commend WashDOT for putting the Cascade timetables. So with that, I've talked too much, but I again support the funding source. Without that, nothing else is going to happen.
Thank you very much.
We had one more over here. Yep, right here, Charlie.
Thank you. My granddad used to be an engineer on the Great Northern between North Dakota and Seattle. He settled in Centralia, raised 10 kids here. All my uncles were train nuts. I had some great discussions with my grandfather when I was a little guy, and every other word out of his mouth was GD this and GD that. But he knew trains. And what we need to do is get together with ODOT and decide we want to support rail. And we need to get together in a meeting of all aboard Washington and tell Governor Inslee, blah, to help us 200-mile-hour train running from Seattle to Canada. We have good trains. We need to continue to operate them and telling people that work on the trains job they and so we need to join forces. Who knows, believes in what we do. We need to invite him and tell him we want support from the Transportation Committee of the Legislature to support financing rail. Let's not be bashful. Let's put our feet down and say, the hell with just talking about it. Let's get something going with the state legislature, the Joint Transportation Committee that recommends legislation, and we can bypass that 200-mile train the Governor Inslee has been yapping about, and just say we want something like well-run trains. Thank you.
I think that's a really important. The train 505 has left Olympia 1 minute early. So for those of you who are taking the 505 south, you should be here on time. Before you leave, please make sure that you have donated to Aorta, to All Aboard Washington, to All Aboard Northwest, and the other organizations that we've talked about today. Because that's the other thing that's necessary is money to keep these keep these things going. So with that, if you've got to go south, thank you so much for coming. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who's
Got another hour, I believe.
okay. Yeah, the northbound train's got a little bit more time. But if we have to round out this with one great theme, it's that no matter where we may come from, whether we were here in person today or whether we're attending remotely, whether we're here in Washington, Oregon, Virginia, anywhere else here in the region, we've got something in common. We've got something to fight for. We want better trains, more accessible, more socially equitable, more environmentally friendly, and more economically friendly mode of transportation and for the development of our cities. We've got a big group of allies here that you can be working with. So please don't be afraid to reach out to any of us. If you have any questions, if you want to get to know somebody in your area, or if you want to work with us directly, we're here for you for exactly that. Whether you want to come at it from the accessibility side of things, whether you want to work on the environment, whether it's high-speed rail, conventional trains, commuter trains, there's something for everyone here. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for helping fight the wizard. Thank you for getting through what we hear of as these high-tech solutions that are just more and more cars. Thank you for supporting more and better trains. Thank you for sharing the solutions that you found and for working harder to implement the technology that we know will get us to where we want to go. Feel free, we'll be sticking on the call for just a few more minutes. If you have any more questions, feel free to message us in the chat. As you can hear, we've got a lot of lively conversation going on for those of us who are still here, but we'll be available in the chat if you want to keep engaging with us. Again, the websites that you can work with, there's a lot of groups here that you can work with. All Aboard Washington, who Charlie and I are both part of, All Aboard Northwest, the Association of Oregon Rail and Transit Advocates, Disability Rights Washington, which I believe may be working with a larger group of communities here. Utah Passenger Rail Authority, the Big Sky Rail, Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. Nathan has a project, Snow King Rail here. Utah Passenger Rail Association, Rail Passenger Association. The PNWU, the psychological department there. Climate Rail Alliance. There are so many groups that you can work with no matter how you want to fit in, and we appreciate all of the support that you give us in doing this. So thank you again for attending our event. We hope that the content we provided was informative and valuable. We hope that maybe you've been able to meet somebody new who has a different way of talking about something or supporting something than maybe how you've seen it before. Or that you've learned something new that you can bring to the fight for more and better rail across the United States of America, and especially here in the Pacific Northwest or the greater Northwest region. Again, feel free to reach out to any of us who are involved with this, and we look forward to working with you. Take care. Have a great weekend. If we don't see you beforehand, have a safe and happy holiday season. We look forward to seeing you again in person or virtually. And until there, keep up the fight. Choo choo, ding ding. Save the salmon. Ride the train.